There was one night when every teenager wanted to look older than they really were. For weeks, the dress had to be perfect, the tux had to fit, the corsage had to match, and if you were lucky, your date had already said yes. Parents stood in the driveway with cameras. Friends gathered for photos. And for just one evening, it felt like childhood was coming to an end. But if you look back at those old prom photos today, something stands out immediately. Every decade had its own style, its own colors, its own look. You could tell the year, without anyone telling you. So how did America's biggest night for teenagers change from the elegant 1950s to the unforgettable styles of the 90s? Before there was prom, there was just Friday night. No dress code, no committee, no gymnasium wrapped in crepe paper and dreams. Back in the early 1900s, American high schools were still figuring out what a social even was. Some schools held simple tea parties for graduating seniors. Others did nothing at all. Dancing, for a lot of families, was still considered a little scandalous, a little too grown up. But something was shifting in the country. The 1920s brought jazz, and jazz brought movement, and movement brought young people who wanted more than a quiet tea in the school library. By the 1930s and into the 1940s, promenade, the formal word prom actually comes from, started showing up as a real event, a processional, a grand entrance. Still, it wasn't the spectacle you're picturing. Early proms were modest, church basement modest. Girls wore their Sunday best, not a special gown, just their nicest dress, maybe with a new ribbon. Boys wore a clean shirt and their father's tie if they had to. The gym was decorated with whatever the school could afford: crepe paper streamers, a borrowed record player, a folding table with a bowl of red punch that somebody's mother made too sweet on purpose. There was no pressure to have the dress, no pressure to have the look. Prom, in its earliest form, wasn't about fashion. It was about being allowed just once to feel like an adult. That was about to change completely. By the time the 1950s rolled around, America had money again. The war was over. Factories that once built tanks were now building washing machines, television sets, and yes, teenage culture almost overnight. And prom became something new, a production. The 1950s prom dress was an event in itself. Full skirts, held out by crinoline slips that made every girl look like she'd stepped off a wedding cake. T-length hemlines, sweetheart necklines, soft pastels, powder blue, blush pink, mint green, colors that looked like something out of a Kodachrome photograph, because that's exactly what they were. Getting ready wasn't quick either. Mothers set hair in pin curls the night before. Girls sat still for what felt like hours while somebody's aunt who knew how to do makeup leaned in close with a compact and a steady hand. And somewhere across town, a boy stood in his driveway in a suit that wasn't quite his. Maybe his older brother's, maybe rented for the night, waiting for his father to back the Buick out so he wouldn't be late. Boys wore suits, not tuxedos yet, dark, simple, with a narrow tie and slicked hair. The corsage was sacred. You didn't show up without one, and you definitely didn't get the flower wrong. Carnations meant you cared. Orchids meant you were trying to impress somebody's mother. And when that box was finally opened on the porch, pinned on with shaking hands while a parent hovered nearby with a camera, that was the whole night's first heartbeat. If this brought back a memory of your own prom night, tell us the year and tell us what you wore in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one showing you exactly how America looked, felt, and lived, decade by decade, subscribe to the Nostalgia Vault. Because every decade has a story worth telling. Then the 1960s arrived and everything the 50s had built got shaken. Early 60s prom still held on to that ladylike elegance. Think Jackie Kennedy in miniature, girls in structured, tailored dresses with white gloves. But by the back half of the decade, the culture outside was exploding, and prom couldn't stay untouched forever. Hemlines crept up. Empire waists came in. Some girls started wearing psychedelic prints that would have made a 1959 chaperone faint on the spot. The Beatles had already landed in America by 1964, and suddenly boys wanted their hair a little longer, their lapels a little wider. Prom was no longer just a rite of passage. It was becoming a mirror. Whatever was happening in the streets was starting to show up in the gymnasium. If you want to understand America in the 1970s, you don't need a textbook. You need a prom photo. Because nothing captures the chaos, the color, the confidence of that decade quite like a 1970s prom lineup. Bell-bottom tuxedos. Ruffled shirts in colors that had no business existing in nature. Wide lapels, sometimes velvet, sometimes with a paisley print loud enough to hear. Girls wore empire waist gowns in Kiana fabric, that slinky, silky polyester that clung and flowed at the same time. Halter necks, bare shoulders. Hair parted straight down the middle, ironed flat, or blown out into a soft Farrah Fawcett wave depending on which year you landed in. This was disco's decade. Studio 54 opened its doors in 1977, and even teenagers 3 states away who'd never see the inside of a nightclub still wanted to dress like they might. The gym lights went down, a mirror ball somebody's shop teacher rigged up spun slow circles on the ceiling, and for 3 minutes during a slow song, nobody cared how the punch tasted or who was watching. Then the 1980s hit, and prom fashion stopped whispering entirely. It started shouting. Shoulder pads that could survive a football tackle. Taffeta skirts so big you needed a strategy just to sit in a car. Neon colors, hot pink, electric blue, the kind of colors that seemed to hum under gymnasium lighting. Big hair, bigger hairspray. A single king could survive maybe 2 proms before it gave up entirely. Boys weren't spared either. Pastel tuxedos. Miami Vice-style jackets with the sleeves pushed up. Skinny ties or sometimes no tie at all, just an open collar and too much confidence. This was the decade of Pretty in Pink, of MTV lighting up bedrooms across the country, of a generation that had grown up being told to stand out, not blend in. And every year, right in the middle of the night, the room would go quiet for one moment, the crowning. A folding chair turned throne, a cardboard crown, a class president reading 2 names off an index card while everyone held their breath. And prom fashion listened. By the 1990s, something interesting happened. Prom fashion started to calm down. The shoulder pads deflated. The neon faded. Girls moved toward slip dresses. Simple, sleek, often in solid jewel tones like deep purple or forest green, inspired by the minimalism that was creeping into fashion everywhere. Think Kate Moss, not Farrah Fawcett. Boys, for the first time in decades, started wearing tuxedos that actually looked like tuxedos. Classic black. Maybe a colored vest if you were feeling bold. The loud, maximalist energy of the 70s and 80s was quietly retiring. This was also the decade when the ride became part of the story. A group of friends pooling babysitting money and gas station shifts just to rent one stretch limo for a night, packed in 6 or 8 deep, radio turned up, disposable cameras passed around the back seats so nobody's parents would see the pictures until they came back from the drugstore days later. And in some ways, that's when prom fashion lost something. Not the tradition. Prom is still alive today, still a rite of passage for millions of teenagers every spring. But that specific era, the one where you could look at a photo and know instantly exactly what year it was taken, that started to fade with it. Fashion today moves faster and blends together more than it ever did. Trends cycle in months, not decades. And somewhere in that speed, prom lost its fingerprint. The dresses your grandmother wore told you it was 1958. The tux your father wore told you it was 1978. What will tell your kids' prom photos apart 50 years from now? Somewhere, right now, in a closet or an attic or the bottom of a cedar chest, there's a prom dress nobody's worn in decades. Maybe it doesn't fit anymore. Maybe the color's faded. Maybe it still smells faintly like the perfume from that night. But if you found it, you'd remember everything. The nervous walk to the door. The corsage pin just slightly crooked. The song that was playing when you finally worked up the nerve to ask. Prom fashion wasn't really about the fabric or the color or the cut. It was about a single night when you got to try on who you might become. And whether you walked in wearing crinoline or bell-bottoms, or shoulder pads big enough to block a doorway, for one evening you weren't a kid anymore. You were exactly who you wanted the world to see. If this brought back a memory of your own prom night, tell us the year and tell us what you wore in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one showing you exactly how America looked, felt, and lived, decade by decade, subscribe to the Nostalgia Vault. Because every decade has a story worth telling.